In order to find a father for the baby in her belly, a woman had sex with her blind date on their first meeting. 5 months later, she gave birth to a son for the man. The honest man decided to give the mother and child a home out of responsibility, so they got married. But after marriage, the man discovered how restless the woman was. Right after finishing her postpartum confinement, she left the child for him to care for while she put on heavy makeup and stayed out all night every night. One day when the woman just went out, Nick decided to follow her to investigate. Carrying the child, he came to a tavern. The moment he saw his wife lying in someone else's arms, the man finally realized he had been treated as a backup. After returning home, he questioned his wife whether the child was his, but she just smiled meaningfully. Nick instantly understood the child wasn't his. In a rage, he pushed his wife to the ground, causing her head to hit the wall and die on the spot. Nick panicked immediately, calling the woman's name in a trembling voice trying to wake her up. In his daze, a drop of water fell on the woman's head. Nick looked up puzzled and found it was water leaking from the upstairs bathroom. He suddenly thought of something and ran upstairs frantically, but it was too late. Overnight, both his wife and child were gone from him. At age 25, Nick was imprisoned for intentional homicide and sentenced to 25 years. 18 years later, Nick was hospitalized for appendicitis. He took the opportunity during surgery to escape by jumping out the window. With an injured foot, he could only take a boy hostage at a supermarket, forcing the boy to take him to see his mother. Nick hoped they could help him escape. Adele, looking at the bloodstained man opposite her and afraid of getting involved in trouble, refused by saying she had important business in the afternoon. But unexpectedly, the man grabbed her son's neck, threatening that she had no choice but to help. Finally, Adele reluctantly agreed. At checkout, her nervous demeanor made the cashier keep looking at her, but Adele didn't ask for help. The three got in the car with Nick holding the boy in the back seat while Adele drove home. Worried about her son's safety, Adele didn't dare seek help even when police cars sped past them. When they arrived home, Nick looked around the cozy house while Adele secretly took a small knife and hid it in her hand. Henry then asked about his injuries. Nick honestly told him he got them from jumping from the second floor of a prison hospital. Mother and son immediately realized they were helping an escaped convict. Adele nervously poured him coffee. Sensing her unease, Nick told her he would only stay until evening to rest his leg, and would help however he could during that time. But Adele couldn't easily trust a murderer's words. Just then, the TV reported news about an escaped murderer. Henry looked at the man beside him, understanding that harboring a criminal was illegal. Nick had already considered this and suggested tying Adele up to create the appearance of a hostage situation, which would prevent the mother and son from being implicated. With Adele's consent, Nick carefully tied her to a chair, being extremely gentle to avoid hurting her. Adele felt his careful movements and relaxed slightly. Nick then went to the kitchen and took ingredients from the fridge under their puzzled gazes. Perhaps to apologize for his sudden intrusion, Nick skillfully prepared dinner. Knowing Adele couldn't eat easily with her legs tied, he personally fed her, even blowing on the food to cool it first. This considerate act surprised Adele, but she didn't refuse. Henry was amazed seeing this, as since his parents' divorce, his mother had suffered depression and avoided contact with men, yet now she was accepting food fed to her by Nick. When night fell and patrol cars still hadn't left, Nick had no choice but to continue hiding there until morning. He first untied Adele so she could rest in her room while he slept in the living room. The next morning, Nick made breakfast as usual. When Adele came out, she brought rope for Nick to tie her again, but Nick said it wasn't necessary as this evidence was enough to clear them of harboring charges. Not hearing the usual morning train, Nick guessed it might be the weekend and said he might need to stay 2 more days. Adele said nothing, but at her son's urging, she took a bite of Nick's cooking and found it surprisingly delicious. Understanding Adele was willing to continue helping him, Nick did what he could to thank them, fixing the broken steps, replacing the fuse in Adele's car, and waxing the floors. In free time, he patiently taught Henry how to play baseball. Nick was naturally a family-oriented man who cherished this hard-won warmth. Adele watched all this, and on this sunny afternoon, both mother and son seemed to forget Nick's identity. Adele even thoughtfully mended the hem of Nick's pants. But as they were immersed in this moment, urgent knocking came at the door. Nick immediately restrained Adele and had Henry answer, warning him not to slip up. Fortunately, it was just a neighbor bringing peaches. Seeing Henry answer, the neighbor warned him about the escaped murderer in the area and not to open the door for strangers. Hearing this made Henry nervous, but he maintained composure and sent the neighbor away. Afterwards, Nick praised him, bringing a hint of joy to Henry's face. Adele sent Henry away and angrily scolded Nick for being so reckless. Nick apologized for his earlier actions. To lighten the mood, Nick took a peach from the table and found it exceptionally sweet. Adele told him the peaches were all ripe and would spoil if not eaten soon, but there were too many to finish. So Nick worked with Adele and Henry to make his specialty peach pie, teaching them how to knead dough step by step. The heartwarming scene resembled a family of 3. During this process, Adele felt the warmth and physical contact from Nick, her heartstrings constantly plucked by him, her hands trembling more uncontrollably. Henry noticed his mother's unusual behavior and understood she might be falling for this man. He didn't point it out because he liked Nick too. Not only did Nick give him the paternal love he'd never had, but he also helped his mother emerge from the shadows of divorce. As the peach pie went into the oven and its aroma filled every corner of the house, their feelings similarly warmed. Nick sat beside Adele, his hand unconsciously resting on her waist. After hesitation, Adele leaned her head gently on his shoulder. It had been so long since she'd felt such desire after the divorce. Adele enjoyed this tenderness, as did Nick. Henry, playing in the living room, saw everything. When patrol cars passed outside, Nick's chance to leave had come, but neither mother nor son wanted him to go. Faced with their pleas, Nick, who was already reluctant to leave, decided to stay. In the warm and quiet house, Adele and Nick confided their feelings to each other, fully releasing their hidden love. Meanwhile, the intimate sounds from inside also stirred something in Henry's heart. The next morning, Nick resumed repairing the house, fixing loose floorboards, repairing the kitchen window, clearing leaves from the roof. Adele would timely bring him coffee to quench his thirst. He also taught Henry some essential manly skills. Nick had thoroughly integrated into their lives, fulfilling all the roles of the man of the house. From then on, the three lived happily together.